John, I don't think anybody would dispute two of our greatest assets in this country are students and small business.
Yes.
Can you share with those two constituent groups your observations or your counsel? What would you say to a graduating Canadian student coming out into this difficult landscape, difficult job market? What advice would you give them? And by the same token, what would you say to the small to medium business owner who is trying to not only be successful in the Canadian landscape but also on a global stage, because he's got to compete. They have to compete globally.
So with respect to the student, and in fact, this is the same advice at the beginning to the small business owner. I think that the world has changed quite dramatically, particularly for students coming out today. When I had graduated 20 some odd years ago, the first reaction was get a job largely in a larger enterprise, and I did. Get a job in a profession. It's nice and stable, and you'll be taken care of. I think those days are changing quite rapidly, and I think that the days of being an employee are also changing rapidly, and the idea of people being independent contractors, small business owners, etc., is going to be far more prevalent, which means that people need to really take control of their futures without relying on large enterprises. When I look at the current university post-secondary school education, I am a little concerned that entrepreneurialism as a profession is not being taught. Now, there are exceptions, and you're starting over the last 3-ish years, starting to see entrepreneur programs being put into universities. That's a good start, but go right back into the high schools, right into the elementary schools, and to really start to embrace to our children and our grandchildren that being an entrepreneur is a profession. And in fact, as a student coming out right now, trying to create your own business and failing at it is a learning opportunity. And failing again, and failing again. And to us, when we're looking to invest in entrepreneurs, in fact, we try to look at the track record of failure. Because we don't view it as failure, we view it as a learning lesson. And I don't know about you, but when you do something right, you don't spend hours or days agonizing why something went right. But when you do something wrong, you really learn from that and you try to avoid that. And I think that if we put in our school this curriculum of entrepreneurialism right now, by the time that they're coming out and exploring, do I become a doctor, accountant, lawyer? No, I want to become an entrepreneur. And there's a whole series of steps. And those steps will include me starting a company, maybe going into a larger company for a little bit, coming back out, learning more, etc. And I think that right now, the training of that tends to be once the student is already outside of the university or post-secondary school. Same thing with the small business owner, in that I think for the small business owner, having that attitude that failure is absolutely acceptable, and it doesn't mean to be taking ridiculous risks. And in fact, the best entrepreneurs are the ones that we find are very risk savvy, actually measure their risks very, very carefully, but then they're not afraid to move ahead.
And learning from their mistakes.
Absolutely. And once a small business owner is developing a business, the one biggest piece of advice that we have, particularly for innovation-based small business owners, is Canada is generally a small market. And on average, we see under 10% of their revenues end up in Canada. And if they're not out of the chute thinking about how their product or service applies to a global marketplace, right at the very beginning. If they're not thinking about that, we get concerned that it will be a misfire, largely because I think historically, Canadian entrepreneurs were looking at the Canadian marketplace first, and then let's go to the US marketplace, we'll do a little bit of dabbling in Western Europe.
Right.
But it's changed right now. Can it apply to China, India? Can it apply to the Middle East? Can it apply to South America today?
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, don't ignore Canada and the US, of course, but it's just a very, very different global mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very true. Many of the partners that we work with, and as you know, we build leadership teams for companies. Some of them are based here in Canada, but are playing on a global stage, and they're absolutely faced with expanding on a global basis and recognizing the cultural differences and sensitivities that demands of them, and that requires different skills.
It does, and how do we get our entrepreneurs to view the global markets not as an afterthought, but as a necessity first and foremost, and you're building your platform with that in mind. Now you may tactically decide to go into your nearer markets for proximity reasons, but it's not like later on, oh my God, I need to go to Asia, and my product doesn't work. Right.
John, continuing on the same theme of helping and coaching students or others, what role does mentorship play for you personally? What role does it play for your organization? Is that ingrained in the DNA of the organization?
Yes, I mean, from a venture perspective, when you look and you really try to say, what is it in addition to the capital that you're providing? Of course. What value you're really trying to provide? Because at the end of the day, we really agonize that we don't want to just be a dumb source of capital. Right. And frankly, when we're making an investment decision, we are very consciously saying to ourselves, could we truly add value to this organization? If we can't, we typically decline the investment. So we already know up front that we can mentor the C-level folks in the organization, typically the CEO, but in many cases the CFO, CTO, etc. How we can provide networking for suppliers, employees, strategic relationships, and how to give them strategic advisory services. But the real point that we're trying to get across, and I see the market changing, we are built and are here to serve the entrepreneurs, not the other way around. And we believe by serving the entrepreneurs and making them successful, by virtue of achieving that, we'll be successful as well. But it's not the other way around, and I think far too many entrepreneurs have been treated in the past as really serving the capital sources, and we're really trying to change that relationship.
That's great. That's great. I think if I were borrowing or participating with you as a partner, I would feel a lot better if I didn't feel it was sort of a top-down relationship, but more a shoulder-to-shoulder. How can we help you?
Absolutely, and we have 5 founding principles, and one of the 5 founding principles is the entrepreneurs are our partners. Right. And you could say that, but how do you really embed it? And when you look at our terms, our conditions, when we're making our investments, everything that we're doing, our compensation systems, everything, are fully aligned to make sure that there is not that conflict.
Right. John, as you know, we've talked about it. We're doing a series of these leadership interviews. We're talking to people from industry. For example, I've spoken already with Nick Qualley from Microsoft, Max Long from Microsoft, Nick Qualley from Cisco.
Yes.
We've talked to Darren Entwistle from TELUS, Dr. David Naylor from the University of Toronto. So we're trying to talk to industry leaders and academic leaders as well as government leaders. One of the areas that although the questions are very similar, the answers, as you can imagine, have been extremely different in terms of solutions to innovation. But one area that people get really passionate about so far consistently has been the area of social give back. And whether it's around environment or whether it's around philanthropy or how one can weave together industry and business and the social give back on a local level or on a national level. Could you talk or share with us a little bit about your belief system around
Sure.
Social give back and environment and how OMERS plays a role in that?
Yeah, no, it's actually a bit of a controversial topic from a pension fund perspective. So the primary purpose of the pension fund is to generate returns to sustain the futures of our members. No one forgets that in this organization, and the moment you move your eye off the ball on that, you've actually defeated the purpose of why you're here. So that has to be the ultimate goal. Where the controversy is, though, is that some people interpret that as suggesting that there is not an opportunity to actually create social value by virtue of your investing activities. And I don't believe that is the case. I believe that you can achieve a double bottom line. Now, once again, all else being equal, you have to hit the return thresholds. But what happens is that we're inundated with opportunities that are just far more than we can handle. And when given a couple of opportunities that all else being equal, we passionately believe in the return thresholds are very, very similar. But one helps to secure the future for our children or our grandchildren, that perhaps creates innovation jobs, that may create more future pension fund members and giving greater wealth to this nation. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think that gets lost. And I think that you might hear things like, well, we can't do this because we're here to generate returns. No one's saying that that's not what you're trying to do.
Right.
But I actually do think you can actually hit a double bottom line. It is way harder to do that,
Yeah.
but that's what we're paid for as well. And that the team that we have, they don't go out looking to achieve a social benefit, per se. But once they look for a great investable opportunity, and it happens to be in Canada, and it's keeping our Canadian companies here, and it's keeping our students here, and it's giving them a training ground to become a future entrepreneur, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. So in other words, would it be realistic to say that doing well in business and doing good socially is not mutually exclusive? One could even argue that by investing in socially valuable opportunities, one gets the benefit, and there is a bottom line that accrues.
So you nailed it. So the value on the social side actually, for us, gives us higher quality deal flow,
Right.
greater branding. We're constantly looking for people to help our portfolio companies, whether it be from a mentorship perspective or employees. And you know what? People like to draw themselves to people that are frankly trying to change the world. And for us, that is a greater ROI to our portfolio companies and hence a greater ROI to our members.
That's great. We find now that Y-Genners are very, very concerned with not only the top and bottom line of a company they're joining, but talk to us about the social good that the company is doing.
Absolutely.
And if you haven't got that story to tell, it's not as compelling to join a company.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Maybe we can end this with, you shared with me before we started the interview that you're about to embark on a fabulous trip with David Suzuki.
Yes, yes.
Maybe you'd like to take a couple moments and share with the followers and friends of CATA what you're about to embark on.
Well, this is one of my other passions is sustainability and the environment. We are a clean tech investor as well. I would say we're far more focused around clean IT, just because we don't have the full competencies here from a clean tech perspective, but it is a personal passion of mine. One of the things that we're doing is that David Suzuki and I are going to Bhutan, and David is part of the United Nations Commission to help Bhutan measure happiness. Bhutan has come out and determined that the wealth of their nation is measured by happiness and not by the traditional measures of GDP or GNP. They're actually calling it gross national happiness. And the United Nations is actually quite intrigued. And they put a committee together to determine, well, what does that actually mean? How do you measure that? David has been selected on this global commission. And we're going out there for a number of days and personally exploring for myself, what does that really mean in understanding the contentment of people? When is enough enough? Answering some of those questions. So we'll be trekking through the Himalayas and trying to discover for ourselves what that might mean.
That's fabulous. Well, listen, thank you very much for sharing with us today on your thoughts on innovation and mentorship. Have an amazing trip.
Thank you.
And a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.